Manuscript found in Accra by Paulo Coelho, chapters 6 and 7. And a woman called Almira, a seamstress, said, I could have left before the Crusaders arrived, and if I had, I would now be working in Egypt. But I was always too afraid to change. And he answered, we are afraid to change because we think that, after so much effort and sacrifice, we know our present world. And even though that world might not be the best of all worlds, and even though we may not be entirely satisfied with it, at least it won't give us any nasty surprises. We won't go wrong. When necessary, we will make a few minor adjustments so that everything continues in the same way. We see that the mountains always stay in the same place. We see that fully grown trees, when transplanted, usually die. And we say, we want to be like the mountains and the trees, solid and respectable. Even though, during the night, we wake up thinking, I wish I was like the birds who can visit Damascus and Baghdad and come back whenever they want to. Or, I wish I was like the wind, for no one knows where it comes from nor where it goes, and it can change direction even without having to explain why. The next day, however, we remember that the birds are always fleeing from hunters and larger birds, and that the wind sometimes gets caught up in the whirlwind and destroy everything around it. It's nice to dream that we will have plenty of time in the future to do our traveling, and that one day we will travel. It cheers us up because we know that we are capable of doing more than we do. Dreaming carries no risks, and dangerous thing is trying to transform your dreams into reality. But the day will come when fate knocks on your door. It will be the gentle tapping of the angel of good fortune for an unmistakable rat-a-tat of unwanted visitor. They both say, change now, not next week, not next month, not next year. The angels say, now. We always listen to the unwanted visitor, and we change everything because he scares us. We change village, habits, shoes, food, behavior. We can't convince the unwanted visitor to allow us to stay as we are. There is no discussion. We always listen to the angel of good fortune, but we ask him, where will this lead? To a new life, comes the answer. And we think, we have a few problems in our life, but nothing that can't be solved in time. We must serve as an example to our parents, our teachers, our children, and keep to the correct path. Our neighbors will expect us to teach everyone the virtue of perseverance, to struggle against adversities and overcome obstacles. And we feel proud of ourselves. And we are praised because we refuse to change, continuing instead in the direction fate has chosen for us. Wrong, because the correct path is the path of nature, which is constantly changing, like the dunes in the desert. Those who think that the mountains don't change are wrong. They are born out of earthquakes, are eroded by the winds and rain, and each day are slightly different even though we do not notice. The mountains change and are pleased. It's good not to be the same all the time. They say to one another. Those who think that trees don't change are wrong. They have to accept that they will be bare in winter and clothed in summer, and they reach beyond the place where they were planted because the birds and the wind scatter their seeds. The trees are glad. I thought I was just one tree, and now I see that I am many, they say to their children springing up around them. Nature is telling us change. And those who do not fear the angel of good fortune understand that they must go forward despite their fear, despite their doubts, despite recriminations, despite threats. They confront their values and prejudices. They hear the advice of their loved ones who say, "Why do that? You have everything you need: the love of your parents, wife, and children, the job it took you so long to get. Don't run the risks of becoming stranger in the strange land." Nevertheless, they risk taking a few steps, sometimes out of curiosity, sometimes out of ambition, but generally because they feel an uncontrollable longing for adventure. At each bend in the road they feel more and more afraid, and yet at the same time they surprise themselves. They are stronger and happier. Joy, that is one of the main blessings of all powerful. If we are happy, we are on the right road. Fear gradually ebbs away because it wasn't given what it felt was its due importance. One question persists as we take our first steps along the path. Will my decision to will my decision to change make other people suffer? But if you love someone, when you want your beloved to be happy, you might feel frightened for him initially, but that feeling soon gives way to pride and seeing him doing what he wants to do and going where he always dreamed of going. Later, we might begin to experience a sense of abandonment and helplessness. But travelers meet other people on the road who are feeling just the same. As they talk, they realize that they are not alone. They become traveling companions and share their solutions to various obstacles. And they all feel wiser and more alive than they thought they were. When they are lying on their tents, unable to sleep and overwhelmed by sadness and regret, they say so themselves. "Tomorrow, and only tomorrow, will I take another step. Besides, I can always turn back because I know the road. But one more step won't make much difference." Until one day, without warning, the road stops testing the traveler and begins to treat him generously. The traveler's troubled spirit takes pleasure in the beauty and the challenges of the new landscape, and each step, which had until then been merely automatic, becomes instead of conscious step. Rather than speaking to him of the solace of security, it teaches him the joy of facing new challenges. The traveler continues his journey. He doesn't complain of boredom now. He complains, rather, that he is tired, but at that point he rests, enjoys the landscape, and then carries on. Instead of spending his whole life destroying the roads he was afraid of following, he begins to love the road he is on. Even if his final destination remains a mystery, even if at some point he makes a wrong decision, God sees his courage and sends him the necessary inspiration to put matters right. What continues to trouble him is not what happens, but the fear that he won't know how to deal with it. Once he has decided to follow his path and has no alternative, he discovers that he has great willpower and that events bend to his decisions. Difficulty is the name of an ancient tool that was created purely to help us define who we are. Religions teach that faith and transformation are the only way of drawing near to God. Faith shows us that we are never alone. Transformation helps us to love the mystery. And when everything seems dark, we feel alone and helpless. We won't look back, for fear of seeing the changes that have taken place in our soul. We will look ahead. We will not fear what happens tomorrow, because yesterday we had someone watching over us, and that same presence will remain in our sight. That presence will shelter us from suffering, or it will give us the strength to face it with dignity. We will go farther than we think. We will seek out the place where the morning star is born, and we will be surprised when we get there how much easier it was than we had imagined. The unwanted visitor visits those who don't change and those who do. But those who did not change can say, "My life was an interesting one. I didn't squander my blessing." But those who did change rather can say, "My life was an interesting one. I didn't squander my blessing." And to those who believe that adventures are dangerous, I say, try routine. That kills you far more quickly. End of chapter 6. Chapter 7. And someone said, "When everything looks black, we need to raise our spirit. So talk to us about beauty." And he answered, "People always say it's inner beauty that matters, not outer beauty." Well, that's not true. If it were, why would flowers put so many energy into attracting bees? And why would raindrops transform themselves into a rainbow when they encounter the sun? Because nature longs for beauty, and it satisfies only when beauty can be exalted. Outer beauty is inner beauty made visible, and it manifests itself in the light that flows from our eyes. It doesn't matter if a person is badly dressed or doesn't conform to our idea of elegance, or even if he isn't concerned about impressing other people. The eyes are the mirror of the soul and reflect everything that seems to be hidden. And like a mirror, they also reflect the person looking into them. So, if the person looking into someone's eyes has a dark soul, he will see only his own ugliness. Beauty is present in all creation, but the dangerous fact is that because we human beings are often cut off from the divine energy, we allow ourselves to be influenced by what other people think. We deny our own beauty because others can't or won't recognize it. Instead of accepting ourselves as we are, we try to imitate what we see around us. We try to be what other people think of as pretty, and little by little, our soul fades, our will weakens, and all the potential we had to make the world a more beautiful place withers away. We forget that the world is what we imagined it to be. We stop being the moonlight and become instead the pool of water reflecting it. Tomorrow, the water will evaporate in the sun, and all because one day someone said, "You are ugly," or "She is pretty." Though those three simple words, they stole away all our self-confidence, and we become ugly and embittered. At that moment, we can draw comfort from so-called wisdom, an accumulation of ideas put together by people wishing to define the world instead of respecting the mystery of life. This wisdom consists of all the unnecessary rules, regulations, and measurements intended to establish a standard of behavior. According to that false wisdom, we should not be concerned about beauty because it is superficial and ephemeral. That isn't true. All the beings created under the sun, from birds to mountains, from flowers to rivers, reflect the miracle of creation. If we resist the temptation to allow other people to define who we are, then we will gradually be able to let the sun inside our own soul shine forth. Love passes by and says, "I never noticed you before." And our soul responds, "Well, pay more attention, because here I am." It took a breeze to blow the dust from your eyes, But now that you have recognized me, don't leave me again, because all of us desire beauty. Beauty exists not in sameness, but in difference. Who could imagine a giraffe without its long neck, or a cactus without its spines? The irregularity of the mountain peaks that surround us as is what makes it so imposing. If we tried to make them all the same, they would no longer command our respect. It is the imperfect that astonishes and attracts us. Then we look at the cedar tree. Don't think the branches should be all the same length. We think how strong it is. When we see a snake, we never say, "He is crawling along the ground while I am walking with head erect." We think, "He might be small, but his skin is so colorful, his movements elegant, and he is more powerful than I." When the camel crosses the desert and takes us to the place we want to reach, we never say, he's humpbacked and has ugly teeth." We think, "He deserves my love for his loyalty and help. Without him, I would never be able to explore the world." A sunset is always more beautiful when it is covered with irregularity. Oh, a sunset is always more beautiful when it is covered with irregularly shaped clouds, because only then can it reflect the many colors out of which dreams and poetry are made. Pity those who think, "I am not beautiful. That's why love has not knocked at my door." In fact, love did not knock, but when they opened the door, they weren't prepared to welcome love in. Oh, that's a strong statement. Love did not knock, but when they opened the door, they weren't prepared to welcome love in. They were too busy trying to make themselves beautiful first, when in fact they were fine as they were. They were trying to imitate others when love was looking for something original. They were trying to reflect what came from outside, forgetting that the brightest light comes from within. End of chapter 7. Time to rest. Thank you, Paulo Coelho, for a good reading. Tomorrow again.